right. Checking in with the Wonderful Adventures of Niles, and we're in the Big Bird Lake chapter, Tackern, which actually is a lake in Sweden, which is not surprising since this is all geography book about Sweden. And we're getting, it's interesting, just kind of the idea of conservation coming in here. There's definitely, I'm not quite sure what era we get into conservation, but like conservation efforts, like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be mowing, developing, destroying habitat and stuff like that. I think that happened earlier, but it's just interesting to see an instance of it here. We have an instance here where we've had a kind of a pretty heart-rending thing of Jorro the duck. Jorro, who gets wounded and gets nursed back to death, and he thinks he's with human beings that love him, that are actually using him, turn out to use him as a decoy duck to kill other ducks for hunting. And, horrified about that, and tries to warn them. And thanks to Thimbletot, friend of birds now, gets away. And that in itself is kind of, it's really, it's kind of brutal in that. But I mean, brutal in less sentimental of a way, I think. And now we've got an instance where a young child, Perola, I think is the name of the child. Perola was like a 3-year-old child who who loved Jorro, and decides when he gets the chance, when the humans aren't looking, and Caesar is just sort of despondent because he's heard that the lake is going to get drained and he's not going to get to have the hunt anymore. So he doesn't care anymore. He wanders off and gets into trouble, but is luckily saved by Jorro. Notices him, brings Thimbletot, and they're able to save him before the leaky scow he's in, that he's taken to get onto the water before it sinks, saves him. And his mother is searching for him. Like, everyone else has given up. It's like they know that the scow has gone out and that it's probably sunk and that the kid drowned like hours and hours ago, but she's continuing to search. And in the midst of all this, her searching, she hears all the birds and how they're, crying and lamenting. Like, they've got their own worries, and that, she knows that this lake is going to get drained. And indeed, it turns out that she and her husband, probably her husband, own a good hunk of the land that's going to benefit from that. And her husband indeed has been the main push behind this. And she's like, but the anguish which she was suffering opened her heart. She thought that she was not as far removed from all other living creatures as people usually think. She understood much better than ever before how birds fared. They had their constant worries for home and children, they as she. There was surely not such a great difference between them and her as she heretofore believed. And then she happened to think that it was as good as settled that these thousands of swans and ducks and loons would lose their homes here by Tackern. It will be very hard for them, she thought. Where shall they bring up their children now? And this is it's interesting. This is in the context of her searching for her child, which is believed dead, that she is coming to this realization, which is kind of quite an amazing thing in itself. And indeed, she stops her search and she goes home and she talks to her husband about how we shouldn't be doing this, and that she feels like it's a judgment by God that we're doing this evil thing. We're draining a lake and killing this habitat for thousands upon thousands of birds. Like, this is a bird sanctuary, basically. Obviously it's not a sanctuary because it's just undeveloped land as far as the human beings are concerned. It's like it's a judgment, and that that's what and the husband, who's like, his motivation for doing this was to increase the land that he could then pass on to his son Perola. Says, yeah, it is. Okay, he's convinced too, and says, okay, I will speak against it. At which point Caesar goes, oh, you're not going to fuck up my hunting. And also, he cares suddenly again. So he drags the woman out and out onto the shore, where in the darkness they hear a child's cry, and it's poor Ola, who, though he'd had a wonderful day with Thumbletot and the geese, now he was hungry and he was scared by the dark and he was crying, and they find him. So it's an interesting story. I mean, psychologically, I don't believe a mother would be like, oh, wait a minute, I need to think about conservation as they're searching for their child. That would be the only thing that would consume them. But it's an interesting connection to make in a story for children as well. So yeah, that is it. I'm continuing to really enjoy The Wonderful Adventures of Niles by Selma Lagerlof. Lagerlof, I got it right. Selma Lagerlof. I'm continuing to enjoy it. All right, I'll leave it there. More videos later.